Hey, welcome back. Joe Gilder here. We're mixing together. At the end of the last episode, I briefly went over and listened to the rough mix that the client sent with the tracks. And I noticed, even though that guitar sounds kind of muddy, like we talked about, I think mine, when I listen to it, has a little too much crispiness. So I went in and I literally just clicked off this high frequency boost that I had in place. And I think it made a big difference. I think I like it better. It's warmer and it doesn't have that extra air noise. I think it just works okay. So here it is before, and then I'll click it off. It needs to be warmer. It doesn't need to be bright. It needed to be not muddy, but it also doesn't need to be bright. I think this works okay. All right, today we're going to dive into something that I would say is probably one of my specialties. That felt weird saying. Something I really enjoy doing, and I think I do it pretty well, is background vocals. Background vocals can be really tricky, but I have some things that I like to do to them that usually work. So we don't have a ton of background vocals. It's really just 3 at any given moment, but they sound like this. So very simple, and several times there's two voices singing the same note, just one an octave up, so it's not a dense part at all, but I think we can make it feel kind of cool, and that's going to start with a plate reverb. In my template, I always have this plate reverb set up. A plate reverb is just one reverb that, to my ears, mostly just has a tail to it. So this has about almost a 7-second tail. So I don't put much in there, but stuff I'm trying to make sound more ambient, that's the stuff I put in there. And it tends to sound like, oh, hang on. Let me move this to the right bus. There we go. So that reverb just sounds amazing. But first, before we go too deep into that, I really need to... No, this needs to go to my main output. That's what the problem. Okay, here we go. First, I need to make this sound a little more background vocally. Right now, it just sounds like 3 vocals. It needs to be more background vocally. So we're going to roll off the excess low end, just in case there's any there. I'm going to take the mid-range and take it out. We don't need a lot of mid-range. It needs to be a little bit of low end so we hear the bass note that he's singing. And we need nice top end. We don't really need mid-range here. And a little extra brightness up top. Now you may think, oh, Joe, you ruined it. Well, maybe by itself, but who listens to these by itself? No one. It matters what it sounds like in the mix. And this tends to sound good in the mix. You can hear it okay without it cloudying up the other vocals or everything else in the mid-range. Also, by removing some of those mid-range frequencies, it'll sound better in the reverb that we're sending it to, like this. See, it's not quite as muddy of a reverb sound as it was before. We could EQ the reverb for sure, but I was going to do this EQ anyway, so that makes more sense. So doing that on top of what's there, and then blending this in with the rest of the tracks, listen to how nice it sounds.
Our ships have cast away, drifted out, the raging waves of unknown. But the lights guide us home.
Isn't that just pretty? One other thing I like to do that sometimes works is compress these pretty aggressively. Sometimes it does nothing really. Sometimes it's kind of interesting on these ahs. Let's solo them for a second. Nope, don't like it with compression. It's not helping. A lot of times when there's just ahs, you don't gain much from compression unless there's tons of vocals, and sometimes it can kind of tighten them up a little bit. But here, I really like the way they sound. So let's rewind, and let's get that whole section.
Looking for the fool's gold. Wandered off, lost and gone astray. Tried to find a way to go. Oh, ships are cast away, drifted out, raging waves of unknown.
Ooh, it sounds kind of cool. Another thing I would do, I turned up the reverb, could just make it a little bigger. If I was producing this, one thing I would have done is had each of them sing those parts again 2 times and panned them out, so I had a little bit more of a choir of voices. Obviously, that's not what they wanted to do here, but I kind of want it anyway. So what I'm going to do is put a chorus plug-in on this bus. Now, what chorus does, it kind of messes with pitch a little bit. It can kind of make it sound like there's more than one. So if I set this to like this, and we solo this, here it comes. Well, come on, let's fast forward. I tend to like the sound of the chorus versus the doubler. And they kind of sound pretty close, but it thins it out and it gives it a little bit of this kind of phasey sound that especially over here kind of has this swirly sort of sound to it, which is perfect for background vocals. Stick them in a big reverb and suddenly I still think this part could be louder.
Raging waves of unknown, but the lights guide us home.
So that ended up being kind of cool. Now, keep in mind, we haven't mixed the lead vocals yet. And in fact, I'll turn those off just so we can hear just what the background vocals sound like with the rest of the instruments, which we have mixed. So we'll come into it here. Tell you what I did miss is I couldn't hear the low note as well. It sounds cool, but it's too low. So let's go here, chop that part up, and just use our button to go. Turn it up, 3 dB. Feels pretty stinking cool. And just for giggles, I'm gonna do one other thing. Duplicate, copy, and then transpose down an octave. Listen to this. No one will ever hear this in the mix, but if I just let that last note have that crazy monster octave sound, it could be kind of cool. Listen to it. Here it is without it. So now I'll add it in halfway through the note so you can hear what it adds, if anything. Sometimes you just leave things like that in the mix even though you'd never hear it, and no one will ever know, and it serves no purpose. But I know, and you'll know. It'll be our little secret, you and me. And thousands of other people. Okay. I'm happy with the background vocals. It's time to end this episode. Thank you, episode. And move on to the next one where we will deal with his vocal. You know what? We'll do her vocal first, ladies first, and then we'll do his vocal. And then we'll be close to done and send it off and get feedback. And they'll say, we hate it. Delete everything. And I'll say, no. And they'll say, we're just kidding. And then they'll have some things they want me to change. That's how it works. All right. Thanks for watching this episode. I'll see you around.